CIT 225, Network Security and Penetration Testing. In our previous lecture, we tried to understand some basic vulnerabilities with Microsoft Exchange Server. Today we'll be talking about different kind of email attacks, which includes list linking, email bombing, spammings, sniffing and spoofing, email attachments 419s, scams, and phishing. Now, list linking is similar to email bombing, where someone sends bulk of emails daily to a specific email account, involves enrolling potential hundreds of target users through the email list and distributed email messages systems. We have distribution lists, as I told you. Groups are divided into aliases, and then there is a single alias for a group of students. For example, if we are calling students at university.edu, all students will be added to that group. So they'll exploit the aliases by distributing email messages using those lists. Theory behind the voluntarily mail flooding is to subjects of the messages are interesting to the members. Email is sent, as you can see, to the list server, which has a database or a list of members, and that email would be sent to all users. Usually they draft it in a way that it looks interesting and relevant to the institution wherever they are sending it. Now, there could be different list servers where they'll be forwarding the messages, like victim would send 600 emails per day using a forwarding service to the list servers by 300 per day or 200 or 100, depending what kind of list and how many users do you have in that list. Now, email bombing is sending an identical email repeatedly to the target users. It may exceed the storage of the bandwidth of some email accounts. Mail bombs and email bombing utility that was distributed in a file called bomb02.zip. Certain email bombs utilities are used on any system that supports SMTP servers, and other utilities are specialized. Ever since they started scanning the zip files as well, before it wasn't scanning inside the zip file, so the file was included which would take advantage of the known vulnerabilities of the system and would send lots of emails together. Now, usually these emails are of a specific size, for example 1 to 2 MB, and then you can find out the default limits of Microsoft Exchange Server, that what are the standard sizes for the mailboxes. It would keep on sending it unless and until the mailbox is full, and the user would start getting a message that you cannot receive any further messages because you have reached the limit, the storage limit on your mailbox. Thus, the user will not be receiving any emails. If you do it and the storage is quite limited on the server, it would affect the organization in receiving any emails from outside the organization unless and until all those queues and chains of emails are deleted and whoever the sender is blocked either by the email address or the IP address of the sender. Email spamming is, many people use the term spam to mean any email they don't like or did not request. Spam is a commercial nuisance email with no effective opt-out system. They might have got your email address from somewhere and they'll start sending you all the promotional emails. The smart way these days is that they don't send you lots of emails that you'll add it to blocked senders list, but they'll keep your email address for any future communication, and whenever there is anything which they want to convey a message to that group of guys, they'll use the accounts. And usually you don't have an option of click here to unsubscribe, so that you can opt out from that distribution list. Be very careful if you sometimes see this option of opting out or unsubscribing from the distribution list. Actually, it's a link to subscribe yourself to more services, because they are just showing a link and of course people would click on it. First of all, it would confirm that it's an active account. Second thing is that it would further take you to the pages which would subscribe you to more services. Email spamming is nearly impossible to prevent because all users have their own definition of what constitutes spam. Spamming can be considered a security hazard, especially if spammers use corporate email servers relay their messages. The reason is that if someone is sending emails out from a specific domain, you can block an email address. He might come from a different email account or through the same domain but a different account. So it would be difficult to stop it unless and until if you'll block the message by the header of the email, or you'll try to copy the subject or the body of the email and update the filters on your anti-spam appliance so that if any emails are received from that specific domain or a user, it would be blocked on the server itself. Email sniffing and spoofing is packet sniffers are able to collect all the unencrypted data traveling on the network. All POP3 email requests will show the attacker the username and password in a plain text. Email spoofing is a way of tampering the email so that the messages received appears to be from a known source or a trusted person when it is actually sent to an imposter. The person being imitated is unaware. That's why we say that the default ports for the emails communication for POP3 can be changed, even for SMTP, for secure communications. Since on POP3 on the default port, which is port 25 on which it's communicating, if someone is sending messages, they can be captured by sniffing the packets, and then the plain text username and password can be copied from there, and it could be used later to open the web-based emails using the same username and password, and then those accounts are usually compromised. Now, email attachments to an email can contain worms and viruses. Worms can self-mail themselves. Emails to which the forms attach themselves are often extremely poorly written. If the victim opens an email, the worm spreads. It would just disappear. Especially, it's not only the executable files. Sometimes it comes at macros, like which is a Visual Basic script through which it would be executed, or it would be attached as part of the picture or a video or an audio file. As soon as you'll download it, it would execute and it would be performing an operation in the background. In the meantime, when you'll be watching the video, listening to that music or the audio clip which came with that specific email or the video. If you are receiving anything like that and you see that there is an attachment and you don't know the sender, there is no point of opening those emails. Right away you can delete it. If it would be important, those guys would contact you themselves. Now, 491 scams and phishings are advanced fee fraud named after the relevant section for the Criminal Code of Nigeria, referring to advanced fee fraud. Occurs when the victim pays money to someone in anticipation of receiving something of a greater value. Lottery, for example. They'll say that you just won a lottery of $100,000, and in order to process the service, or in order to get the actual cash amount on your bank, please send us at least a draft of $10 at this address with your complete bank details and etc., so that we can process it. So they send these kind of emails to thousands of users, and they receive feedback from these kind of guys by receiving at least $10 in their account. So they keep on sending it, and people pay them thinking that maybe they'll receive the lottery. Bad check scams are the victims is asked to agree to receive the money for an offshore company who cannot get it otherwise. The victim is offered 10% of the money, that we'll send you that amount if you will pay the processing charges. Now, phishing uses the emails from the purported financial institution. For example, it would be saying that it's coming from eBay or PayPal. stating that there is something wrong with an account and account holder needs to log in to set it straight. They provide the account holders with a link to a site. It looks almost identical to a real company site. Then the account holder logs. The scammers captures the username and password. Just like we receive some emails from unknown accounts showing that it's actually coming from a bank, that you need to update your details on the bank account, otherwise the account would be frozen. Now it's coming in the forms of SMS as well. So if people are responding to it, there is a team of guys sitting who would act just like the bank guys, and they'll be getting all the basic details about your login and rest of this stuff for the bank accounts. Now there are some browser-based vulnerabilities as well. Browsers are applications written in some programming languages by human beings. All browsers have bugs, coding errors, and vulnerabilities. That's why they keep on scanning, or they keep on releasing the updates for the browsers for different companies. Now the big companies, which are usually Chrome or Firefox, etc., whenever you see an update, they don't usually ask you to install the update. They'll directly install the update on the machine, because they know that there are some known vulnerabilities. If they are identified, the users browsers must be patched as soon as possible. There is a lot of information that you have in your browser which could be compromised if you are not updating the browsers on regular basis. Your location history, your purchasing history, your credit card details, even most of the browsers are saving your username and passwords. So if your username and passwords which are saved on the account which is linked to your Google or any other service account can be compromised. That's why nowadays all these services are encrypted and the information is stored in the cloud rather than being saved on the computer. But not everyone has synchronized their browsers with the companies, or they have created the accounts. Just like on Microsoft Edge, if you have not logged into Microsoft, it would keep on saving the username and passwords in the same browser rather than syncing it in the cloud. Now protection is a few fairly effective countermeasures to threats and annoyances. Could be called personal and corporate measures. That what are you doing, what is your organization doing against these kind of spams or the problems that you might encounter if you are browsing internet. For example, the organization might force you to install, or they'll push the antivirus to the computers, which comes in with a firewall protection, anti-spam, and antivirus. Further, for the email protection, we have email messaging gateway protection systems, which would be scanning all emails which would be received in the organization, and it's cleaned, thoroughly checked that you are not receiving the spam from any specific accounts, and then they are delivered to the mailboxes. If still some emails are flagged as spam, you will check it in a spam filter list or report on daily basis. If you'll see that some of your personal emails are appearing in that spam filter, you can simply release it from there. Or if you want to report any email which is a spam and is delivered in your mailbox, you can directly report it so that it's blocked on the messaging gateway. Further, we can define lots of filters on the messaging gateway, with the help of which we can block specific email addresses, accounts, domains. There are lots of options when it comes to the messaging gateways. Now, personal and email security countermeasures is segmenting the email. Get 2 or more email accounts, use them for a specific purpose. Don't use your official account for any personal communication, and don't use your personal account for any professional or official communications. Filter email at the client level, or email clients give users a tool to filter the emails. Filter for whitelist rather than the blacklist terms. Blacklist is you have defined that these guys will not be able to send you an email. Whitelist is you'll define that I will receive email from these guys only. Now that's a lot of job if you are setting up list with the known domains from which you will be receiving emails. Blacklisting is often handled by the ISP, and they typically place the suspected spam in the bulk folder. Now due diligence is using a same amount of effort that a personably educated person or a reasonably educated person would use. Users should have antivirus software or any reason of suspect vulnerability of the viruses or worms, or digital and signatures and certificates are required for the file that validates who is the user, and digital signatures to use in form of user's identity to any third party concerned. You can set up these digital signatures on Microsoft Exchange accounts as well. So any emails that you'll be receiving, it would be verified that it's coming from a known source. Otherwise the email would be dropped or highlighted that the source of the email is not being verified. So you can consider deleting it if it's coming from an unknown source, or add him or her to the safe senders list. Digital certificates and certificates authorities issues the certificates which are called digital certificates, and digital certificates includes the information about the sender, which is certified by signing the message. Now the corporate email security countermeasures is, as I told you, security policies should be inform the entire organization of the acceptable email and messaging, that you will not be using it for any personal communications. Don't send attachments of bigger than a certain size, otherwise it would be stopped. Some organizations don't receive bigger attachments, others receive it, but they are not delivered to the mailboxes during the office hours. After the office hours, once they'll have less load on the network, then those emails would be delivered to the accounts. Policy will also contain policies for infractions of the messaging protocols, and implement the antivirus software in all machines in case a server-based solution is missing or something. Consider the software firewalls and centralized patch management system. Anti-spam tools are there as well, which could be either hardware or software tools. All anti-spam tools are reactive and most are based on filtering algorithms. Now all these messaging gateway security systems, they are not only scanning for the spam, they have antivirus installed on them as well, which would detect for any potential bombs or viruses which are coming through the emails as well. So they'll be filtered. That's in addition to the security or the antivirus which is installed on your computers. So the maximum protection would be once the email is received, and if it has any sort of viruses or trojans etc. attached to them, they'll be filtered out at the server level. And then once those emails would reach on your computer and your different antivirus would detect any other signature to it, they'll delete the messages from there as well. Tools reduce storage requirements for regulatory purposes and reduce the time spent by employees in reading, analyzing and processing obviously unwanted emails. There are guys that we have seen in the organizations that regardless of who's sending the email and what is it saying, they just love reading. So before deleting, even if it's a spam, they'll make sure they read it thoroughly, that what's written in it. Advanced anti-spam tools include content checking of incoming and outgoing messages, can be installed on email system to monitor whether the users are giving away trade secrets or not. This is called the privacy check, or the systems are installed which make sure that the confidential documents or any information related to the organization is not being leaked out through the email accounts, or to check for offensive and inappropriate content. An authorized censor within the organization must approve any suspicious messages based on the subject, based on the attachment, based on the content. They'll be reading it before the emails are sent out or received in the organization. They want to make sure that they don't have any guys who are sitting within an organization and sending trade secrets through their personal email accounts or the official email accounts. Disclaimers are usually there attached to each company in the email. Consider an effective way of controlling the employees to send the sensitive information, etc. Whenever you receive an email from outside the organization, most of the time there is a footer message that this email is received from outside the organization, or even if it's received from within the organization, it's marked internal, and for external emails it's written external. Further, it's clearly written that it's for internal use and it should not be shared with anyone outside the organization. Now, encryption is a technique which is used in PGP, which is pretty good privacy, make gleaning useful information from packet sniffing rather than challenging. Then virus scanners checks all incoming and outgoing email messages and attachments for email viruses and worms. Server-based virus solutions cut the time users spend dealing with possible virus in the emails and uses the multi-layered defense, not just one solution. So that brings us to the end of chapter number 14.